3, 2, 1. Hello, and yeah, it's a little bit of an odd one, really. I'm going to look like a lunatic while having a walk around the local area I live in. But while I'm doing that, I want to talk all about Star Trek. So, as you can see, I live in the beautiful countryside, so it's just a nice way to have a little bit of a walk around, really. But Save Lower Decks is something that is really, really important to us. Now, you will have seen that Untitled Trek, as the show, interviewed the Saving Lower Decks team, and they were absolutely fantastic. They already saved Prodigy. If you hadn't seen that, if you head over to Netflix, you can see that season 2 is due out soon, when the world thought that Paramount and the like had given up on Prodigy. But no, the Save Prodigy team went out there, they campaigned, they got voice artists working for them, they got big stars joining the fight, and they rescued it. Netflix bought it, and voila, it's amazing. They saved Prodigy. Well, the same people behind that are now behind the Save Lower Decks. Head over to the Untitled Trek show on your podcast player of choice, or even YouTube, because the podcast is on there, and you'll see one of our episodes, we interview them about what they're trying to do. And it is super, super, super important. Save Lower Decks. Why should we save Lower Decks? Because Lower Decks was awesome, and that's what this walk's about, actually. So the people that are listening to the podcast, head over to YouTube and you can just see me walking through the countryside of Redbourne where I live. It's very beautiful, although sod's law, it's the hottest day of the year so far, and it's suddenly become overcast. So as you can see over there, the sun is setting somewhere over there, and it's a bit darker than I wanted it to be. So if this doesn't look wonderful, I apologise. But yeah, I just thought while I'm walking, I could talk to you about why Lower Decks is so important to me. And to understand that, I guess you need to understand what my relationship with Star Trek is. Now, I'm not going to lie, I'm not going to give you some story about Star Trek saved my life. Now, I know there's lots of people out there with various mental health issues, and Star Trek, or a great deal of other shows in fact, have helped people get through some of the worst times in their life. I'm not one of them, okay? Let's rewind back to, let's say, 1989, 1990, when I was 5 or 6 years old. And I think that's a fair time to shoot back to, because I'm likely to remember a little bit then. And my memories really are going to see my aunt, my dad's mum's sister, so it would have been great aunt actually, at a care home. And let's face it, at 6 years old, that's not exactly something you're going to want to do. It's quite miserable, quite upsetting. So we were allowed to do a bit of free roaming. One of our favourite things to do was take a little bit of money from my aunt, and we'd go down to the newsagent and we'd all buy a chocolate bar each. And mine always had to be a fries 5 flavours, if any of you remember those. And then we could come back and sit in their common room and watch TV. Now, on a Sunday, there wasn't much on. Bearing in mind, we'd got BBC One, BBC Two, ITV, well, LDN, seeing it was the weekend, and we'd got Channel 4. So Channel 4 used to go on, and as my 2 brothers were older, they used to disappear off. I got left with the TV, and Channel 4 used to do reruns of, what was his name? Something Irwin. Land of the Giants, anyway. Great TV show, amazing practical effects used, all about a crew in a space shuttle sort of transport thing, getting sucked through a vortex, and they end up in the Land of the Giants. And as you can imagine now, actually, where we're walking, if you saw a little person run out from the corn from one side to the other, that was Land of the Giants. These people ended up in an alternate universe where they're tiny and the rest of the world is huge. And it was wonderful. Really, really wonderful. But alongside that, if it wasn't Land of the Giants, then it was Star Trek, the original series, and I was engrossed by it. And that was the beginning of my Star Trek fandom. Seeing Captain Kirk, Mr. Spock, Mr. Scotty, all of these on the original series weekly at the old people's home, I was captivated. The stories of the USS Enterprise 1701, flying around, being picked up by giant green hands, seeing gods of a ancient myth portrayed on screen as actually just dicks. Yeah, that is how I got into Star Trek. And then fast forward a few years and I got to watch, I'm guessing, yeah, they would have been actually the reruns of the first few series of The Next Generation. And that's really where my absolute true love came for Star Trek. But like anything with me and anything with the podcast I do, there's going to be a tangent, and that's because I forgot something. So I've talked about the original series. I discovered it by watching it at the old people's home. My true love of Star Trek and the original series was not from the television show, though. As much as I watched the television show, it was the original series movies. So the original actors in the classic Star Trek films that really blew my mind as a child. And God, I have really fond memories of it being summertime, playing out in the garden, because obviously we didn't have a computer, we didn't have games consoles. I was down the park, I was in the garden digging holes, you know, just typical children stuff. And Mum would shout from inside, one of the Star Trek films is on. And I would run in and I would be glued to it. In fact, for some reason, it always seemed to be, during the summer, it was The Voyage Home. And any time that it was around Christmas, it was The Final Frontier. Honestly, I don't know why it was always The Final Frontier around Christmas, but I remember always coming back around kind of Boxing Day or coming in towards New Year, and it was always on. Always on. I just presume it was just a scheduling thing, but there you go. It wasn't exactly a Christmassy film, was it? But yeah, I really loved the films, to the point that I remember I had this black polo neck jumper, and not polo neck, round neck, whatever a round neck jumper is. I even tried to cut pieces of felt out to make my own Star Trek uniform at some point. It was beautiful. Really loved it. But then, of course, I discovered The Next Generation, and The Next Generation really is where I kind of grew into Star Trek. And yeah, everyone's going to think I'm very weird just talking to myself here. But that's the way it goes when you're recording yourself and no one can see that. Right, so Next Generation, where are we? So I got to probably watch it in completely the wrong order. I never saw Encounter at Farpoint until far later. In fact, actually, the first real memories of The Next Generation I had was being absolutely shit scared of the Borg. And watching it with my oldest brother in his bedroom on his little, probably a 12 or 13 inch colour portable TV. And seeing these immense great Borg cube ships appearing in the sky. And I used to have the recurrent kind of imagination, a little bit of a nightmare, that I'd look out the window and I'd see one just up in the sky, and imagining how big they were and how big they would look in the sky is quite a freaky thing. But that's really, as I've already said, where my real in-depth love with Star Trek started, because The Next Generation is my safe space. As much as I didn't use Star Trek as something to help my mental health, it is something that if I ever need a quiet kind of calm down time, or my brain is going absolutely crazy, it's going 10 to the dozen, and I just need something safe, predictable, something that I know is happening, or what will happen even, I go straight to The Next Generation. I turn it on, I choose something from typically season 5, probably the strongest season in my opinion, and off I go, and I'm happy, and it calms me down, and I can just have it on in the background, and then I can get back on with whatever I was doing. Looking back at The Next Generation now, as we've done several times on the Untitled Trek show, obviously you start to see holes in kind of the series. You start to see maybe a few problems, like Geordie being a terribly, well, not awful character, but badly written for, to the point that he's a lech. He's a fairly unsavoury character when it comes to women, which is an unfortunate thing, because his character deserved a lot more. Or you've got Worf, who's tactical, but really very rarely gets to do anything beneficial or good as a tactician. In fact, he pisses more people off and gets shouted at more by Picard for trying to jump the gun, blowing something out of the sky before they've even talked to them. However, it's still my Trek, and I love it for that. And then we got the films. Now, Generations, weirdly, I'd had the day off school. Which way should we go? Left, right? We'll go right. I'd been off school ill for the day, and I'm guessing I must have been obviously I wasn't that unwell, but Mum had for some reason taken pity on me. So I was up at our shop in St Albans. School had finished. My middle brother had come up to the school because no one was at home. Had come up to the shop, from school because no one was home. And I persuaded them somehow to get him to take me to see Generations at the cinema that afternoon. I honestly don't know why. I was off school ill, but I got to go to the cinema. And that was down at the Odeon, when the Odeon in St Albans still existed. So Roland, bless him, hated Star Trek and still hates Star Trek to this day. We can't all be perfect, obviously. But he took me down there and he sat through Generations. And as much as I enjoyed watching Generations at the time, having gone back and watched it again, it's not good. I mean, I have a little bit of love for it, obviously, but wow, it is a bit of a lemon, especially when you consider how good technically the previous film to it was, The Undiscovered Country, was. But it doesn't matter, because then we got First Contact, and it shows you how much of a fond memory I have for anything TNG based. I was desperate to see First Contact at the cinema, and this was before the internet existed and film times weren't exactly easy to get hold of in the UK. And I checked an old newspaper, an old local rag, and had seen that at Hatfield the Odeon that they were showing it. So I said to my cousin, let's go and see it. And I persuaded him to come along, and we went to see it. And of course we got there and it wasn't on. It had been on for the past few weeks, and I'd obviously read last week's paper, not this week's paper. So I missed out, and I had to wait that gut aching long period that we had to do in the 90s to watch any film on VHS or rental. Because unlike today, it doesn't just appear on streaming. It's gone. You had to wait. So I waited, and eventually it came out on VHS, and I went and bought it. Bought it at good old Woolworths, and I know that's where I bought it from. And I rushed home, I put it in the video player, and oh my God, I was blown away. What a film. First of all, the Enterprise E. Wow, what a ship, and such a gorgeous design. And then we've got the Borg, who are some of my favourite bad guys. And as Rob has said many times, if you've got a good bad guy, you've got a good show. So yeah, First Contact blew me away. Now this is going to be interesting for the audio. I'm walking through a tunnel under the M1 at the moment, so you're going to hear lots and lots of echo. Lucky you. Anyway. So First Contact blew me away. And then we had Nemesis. And no matter how hard Tom Hardy tried, Nemesis struggled. Now, I'm not one of the people out there that hate Nemesis. Funnily enough, I don't mind it. I quite enjoy it as a film. I think for the story, it's not terrible. Just a few things could have been improved on it to have made it better. Now I'm going to walk up the road because I'm pretty sure there is a footpath on our right at some point. I would go over here, but I know there's deep water somewhere over there, and with the fields as they are, I don't want to die. Anyway, so yeah, Nemesis, as bad as some people call it, I kind of enjoyed it. It was still the good old Next Generation crew. It was the Enterprise E again. I wasn't complaining. Then we got Insurrection, and holy shit, what a disappointment that was. It was just an excuse for a terrible, terrible love story. And it was a really sad ending for the Next Generation crew as films go. I genuinely thought they deserved better. I thought so. Here we go. Let's not get run over, but I can cross over here, and this will take me up to some nice woods, I think. Let's try not to break my neck on a tree. Anyway, so yeah, Insurrection, no matter how I look at it, don't like it. The whole bendy face thing of the alien race that turns out to be their long lost brothers and sisters, none of it worked for me. And the whole love story really, really was a bit pony. But I still watch it. I still watch it to this day because I like the Next Generation and it's part of their canon. So I stick with it. And I guess that's kind of where, let's jump into the future a moment. That's why I stuck with Picard. Picard season 1, I really didn't like. I really struggled with it. I felt they really cheaped out on some of the effects, and I'm not normally one that will say, just because the effects are bad, it's going to make it bad for me. And that's not true. But as much as I enjoyed the last couple of seasons of Picard, season 1 really could have done better. Really, really could have done better. Then season 2 came along and it started off strong, but then it ended weakly. But then we got season 3. Oh, fuck me, they fixed it, didn't they? They really went to town on that. And having having the Enterprise drifting through the side, just drifting through the inside of a super Borg cube in Jupiter's fucking gas cloud. You can't fucking beat that, can you? No idea where I am. Well, I know where I am, but I'm definitely not a footpath at this point. So that's a bit naughty of me. Oops. Yeah, so Picard 3 kind of fixed it. I would love to see a continuation from that series. I think a lot of people did. They wanted to see a continuation with 7 of 9 leading the new Enterprise and us getting some of the classic crew back, but I severely doubt that's going to happen. God knows if you can hear me right now. I have got the microphone on as well as the camera, but I have got the M1 to my right here, as you can see, and that's probably going to be quite loud. Anyway, God, you're probably wondering, you started off talking about Save Lower Decks, and now you're just rambling on about Star Trek, and I need to, okay? This is not a compulsion. It's not a compulsion by any sort. But what I want you to understand is there is so much Star Trek in the past, but we need Star Trek in the future. So yes, we've got all the stuff in the past, and some of it was brilliant. And we have Star Trek in the present, right now. But it's the Star Trek in the future that we need. And there's good reason for that. Anyway, Star Trek, right. So that's the Next Generation. I think I've covered as much as I want to on the Next Generation, and probably as much as you care to listen. So moving on, it's funny what you can remember. And straight away, I remember Deep Space Nine's release. It was around Christmas time in the UK. It was different to the US. And, oh blimey, sorry Field. I do know there's a footpath up by these woods, so I'm going to try and not squash this farmer's field and get told off any more than I have to. Sorry, where was I? Right, Deep Space Nine. Sorry, getting onto a tangent there. Don't you just love seeing power cables that extending off into the distance there? It's just such a weird thing that we get all our power off them, isn't it? Anyway, Right, Deep Space Nine. Around Christmas time in the UK, and I'd seen the adverts that this new Star Trek was coming, and it was going to be like nothing else before. And I'd already missed The Next Generation first time round. So I hadn't got the excitement of the Enterprise is back. There's a robot on there. There's a bald captain. There's a man who's blind who flies the ship. I didn't get any of that joy. So Deep Space Nine was the first new Trek to have appeared on my screen. And I was... this was kind of peak, kind of early teens for me. And wow, I cannot wait for this. So I sat down and watched it. And I remember seeing all the adverts for it. And I got halfway through the first episode before I got called away and told, Tom, we're going to go and watch your middle brother at school now. It's the yearly Christmas assembly they have for parents in the evening, bastards. And your brother's doing a reading piece. So you need to come with us because you can't be left home alone. And I missed the second half of Deep Space Nine, which I was gutted because I loved it. I genuinely remember watching the first half of that episode and going, wow, this is so different. This isn't on a spaceship going to different planets. It's a space station, and there's a shapeshifter, and there's this new race that I don't think I'd ever come across before. Obviously I had. If you look at the TNG series, Bajorans do turn up, but to me it was absolutely all brand new. I'm not going to walk through that because that's just going to absolutely bring me up in spots and all sorts. But if I come to these woods, I can get into the woods through here. So yeah, I was captivated by it, and I watched the first probably 3 seasons religiously. Cisco is a massively, massively underappreciated captain. In fact, the whole of Deep Space Nine is. The storylines are some of the best storylines of any Trek. And it doesn't always get the recognition for that. And the acting too. I've got to say, the acting on it is considerably better. Not all the time, but a lot of the time, much better than The Next Generation. And we're not going to do that on the original series because the original series is what it is. It is a figure of its time, and it was expected. So we'll avoid that. But TNG onwards, I think it's fair to judge the acting on everything at that point. So yeah, Deep Space Nine came out, blown away. It wasn't then, probably for another 3 odd years. So I must have been, I don't know, maybe 13 or 14 before I discovered Voyager. Now, we didn't have Sky. We only had channels 1 to 4 and then eventually channel 5 in the UK. Not that we, as the UK, I mean our household. And yeah, I missed quite a lot. Sky got all the Trek before British terrestrial TV did. So yeah, I missed a lot before I got to catch up. And Voyager was one of those. And that was when the BBC had bought the rights to Star Trek and were showing reruns of The Next Generation while also doing reruns of things like Sliders. In fact, probably wasn't even reruns of Sliders. It was probably their first run through. And then it suddenly finished The Next Generation and I saw Voyager and I thought, what on earth is this? And watching that first episode, I wasn't blown away. Now, I know a lot of people will say that Voyager is a lot better than Deep Space Nine, it's a lot better than The Next Generation. In fact, Rob would say that Voyager is his Star Trek. Or he used to say that. We could ask him and actually see what he says his current Trek is. But Voyager was his Trek. And I watched it, and I religiously watched it on a Sunday night when they reran it, and on I think it was a Tuesday or a Thursday night. Oh, right. Now, we could go into the wood, and the light will be shit. So no, we'll go around the wood. We'll keep walking this way. And I grew to love it. The one thing I would say, and my criticism of Voyager, is that it was repetitive. It was basically the ongoing story of them getting back to the Alpha Quadrant, Janeway looking for coffee while occasionally committing genocide. But it really then started to get really, really, really good when the Borg showed up again. And that whole Borg story arc, I loved. But I wouldn't put it as my favourite Trek. And that's why I'm not going to really talk about it much more. Then we've got Enterprise, and I watched it. I enjoyed it. As much as there's so much hate for the theme tune, I like the theme tune. I've got it on one of my playlists. Sorry if you don't like that, but that is the key point I want to make about this before we talk about some of the modern Trek and the current Trek. Trek didn't have a mould. Yes, we've got the same story. We've got the Federation, we've got starships, and we've got a series of races that we regularly saw. Until, of course, Voyager, and then we got more races. There was a little bit of a mould that you could say, as long as it fit within this, you could call it Trek. But otherwise, each series was very much its own series, and they had the freedom to do what they wanted. And most importantly, not one series aimed itself at a particular group of people. Now, there are people that will absolutely adore the original series, but they won't watch anything else. And there's people that will watch The Next Generation, and they won't watch anything else. And you can say that for Deep Space Nine, you can say that for Enterprise, just about. You could say that for Voyager. However, the one thing that, although in any community it happens, Star Trek was not designed to be gatekept. It was not designed to have gatekeepers. And yes, just like any community, it happens. We know this. I'm not going to actually get in. No, I'm not going to say the generic description of what a Trekkie or a gatekeeper is, because then I'm not being any better than them, am I? But of course there's gatekeepers in any community. But Star Trek was designed to be enjoyed by anybody. Anybody could watch it, and if they enjoyed it, they were welcome. And now we come on to the modern Trek. We have Discovery, we have Prodigy, and we have Lower Decks. Now, this is all personal opinion, and it has been since the beginning of this walk. But Discovery, for me, is the worst Trek that I can imagine. Okay? That is my opinion. I didn't like the storyline. I didn't like the random design changes to make it more, I don't know, more impressive on screen, I guess you would say. However, I can fully understand, and I will say I have improved my standing on this and my way of thinking about this, because once upon a time, when Discovery came out, I would say I hate Discovery. I think it's shit. And that's not fair. Think about all the people involved in making it. They made something that they are proud of. And me saying it's shit or I hate it is not fair. I can say I don't like it, which is personal opinion, but to say it's shit, it's horrible, it's crap, that really is not on, because that is only my opinion. And there are millions of people out there that probably love Discovery. And they loved what they did with it. They made it more adult. They loved what they did with the Klingons. They loved what they did with the ship design. The whole floating nacelle thing. As much as I might dislike it, there are many more people than me that do like it. So what I've learned is, shut up, be quiet, and let the people who enjoy Discovery enjoy Discovery for what they find in it, because that is their Trek. And you know what? You could extend that out to anything. DuckTales. I love the original DuckTales cartoon. Not just because it's got a great theme tune, but because I enjoyed the stories and I grew up with it. That was my DuckTales. But I also fully understand that there is a new generation of children now who love DuckTales because of what Disney have done with it over the past few years. I'm not going to take that away from them. I will try and guide them into seeing what the original DuckTales was like. But their DuckTales, oh wow, look at that sunset. Now I bet you on camera, that just doesn't look good at all. But to me, that looks fucking awesome. And sorry, you're now going to see my phone come out as I try and get a photo of that, because that is genuinely a thing of beauty. Lovely. So Discovery, as much as it wasn't my cup of tea, I will continue to give it a try, because the creators have created Trek for a new host of people. And then we got Prodigy. And Prodigy, as much as I've only watched a small amount of season 1 so far, is an incredibly, and I really do mean this, an incredibly important piece of Trek history. Because it's the first Trek that someone like Nickelodeon jumped on and made it for not just adults, but aimed primarily at the children audience. And they managed not only to keep what made Star Trek, but add something completely new to it that no other Trek had done. And they deserve so much praise for that. So I'm going to stand here and watch this, because I don't know how many people haven't ever seen a sunset or a sunrise, but if you haven't, do it, because this is what you're missing. Look at this. This is, I mean, damn it, this is as close to what Star Trek would want you to do. A peaceful world that we get to see the sunrise and sunset in harmony. That's what Star Trek wanted. That's what we get from the TV show. And look at it right now. Isn't this fucking beautiful? Excluding the language. I really am a potty mouth. I do apologise. But isn't that absolutely beautiful? Wow. But Prodigy, back to that then. Back to the walking before it gets too dark and everything goes horribly wrong. Prodigy brought something new to the Star Trek market that deserved love. And Paramount took a knife and ran it around their throat and went, goodbye, you aren't loved. Unlike old Star Trek, you are not loved. We're putting all our money behind Discovery. And to say I was disappointed was an understatement, and obviously a lot of people were disappointed because we got Save Prodigy, and look at what they've done. Netflix has paid for it, they're running out the second season. Even if they only run a second season, they give it a satisfactory conclusion, that's better than not giving it anything at all. So a lot of people loved Prodigy, and Paramount just cut its throat. Now, luckily for Prodigy, it's a bit like Face Off, as much of a cheesy film as it is. Paramount weren't aware, but Prodigy got rushed off to a private hospital and put on life support. And Netflix has come along and it's given him a new face, and it said, here we go, Prodigy is back. And I guess that now brings us to Lower Decks, and I'll try and put some tags in this, so rather than listening to me to ramble on for as long as I have done, and Jesus, it really is a long time, you can just get to the Save Lower Decks bit if you want to. Lower Decks. Lower Decks really, really, really tried again to do something new. And I will be first to admit, I watched the first couple of episodes in the completely wrong frame of mind and said, I don't like this. And I turned it off. And it was an entire year until season 2 came out that I thought, I need to give that another try. So I put it on in the office when I was working, and it turned out that was a mistake, because I then binge watched the entirety of season 1 when I was meant to be working. And it was mind-blowing what I had turned my back on too soon. Do you hear that, Paramount? You're turning your back too soon on Lower Decks. Not only were we given a group of characters that you could fall in love with, that you could say, I would love to be friends with these people, it gave us solid Star Trek. It gave us Star Trek stories that were straight out of the Next Generation, straight out of Voyager, straight out of the original series. It was just absolutely phenomenal, and the only difference with it being was it was animated. I can't really tell you how much love I have for Lower Decks now, and how much respect I have for every storyline, every story arc they've done. It's been bloody brilliant. It's made me laugh, it's made me uncomfortable, it's made me sad. It's brought together entire Star Trek communities who can then go away and say, actually, it was quite funny, wasn't it, this Next Generation episode that they're ripping the piss out of? Or, oh, I recognise that because it really is Star Trek kind of lore. So when I heard that Lower Decks was being cancelled after the next season, I genuinely can't just think why. Why did Paramount take out that blade again, run up behind them and just slash its throat? It absolutely bloody baffles me. Now, I'm standing here, by the way, just hoping that no one's kind of listening to me, because they're just going to think, what is this lunatic doing? But I'm also hoping that you're at least getting to see a little bit of sunset here. I tell you what, the temperature has come down so nicely now. It's beautiful. But yeah, Lower Decks. Oh, it deserves a million times more love than Paramount are giving it. And what's worse is the fan base don't just give it the love. They are shouting it from the rooftops. They are saying how worthwhile a TV show this is, how good it is, how good the stories are, everything. And Paramount are just full on ignoring them. And I'm confused. I really am confused. And now we've got Save Lower Decks. Fingers crossed, we will see Netflix or another streaming service, even if it was Amazon. I know, as evil as Amazon is, even if they bought it, and bear in mind, they showed it first. Even if Amazon bought it, I would be super happy, because then it's getting the chance it deserves. Now, some people might say that, yes, it's had more seasons than Prodigy did, and it's already... actually, it may have already had more seasons than Enterprise. But I would say that, and personal opinion, remember, Enterprise probably didn't deserve that many more seasons, if any at all. It got what it had, and that's kind of it. But Lower Decks could just go on and on. There's no end for it. The animated... what's my brain trying to say here? The fact they made it an animated series means they're not limited. Okay, it's not like The Next Generation. It's not like Voyager. It's not like any of the shows that have come before it, excluding Prodigy, where you're limited to, have we still got the actors? Have we still got the effects department? Have we still got the budget? Have we still got the sets? That is the bonus of being animated. The animated series can have whatever it wants done, and it can be saved. And there's very little that's going to stop that. However, Paramount seem hell-bent on it. So, it's painful. It really is painful to hear that. And it's it's more than devastating, and it's more than disappointing, and just finding an apt word is hard right now. And that is why I'm incredibly grateful that the Save Lower Decks team exist. I'm so grateful they came on our show to talk about it, and that's why I'm talking about it now. So head over to Save Lower Decks. It's on Facebook, it's on Twitter, it's on Instagram, it's everywhere. It's on YouTube. There are multiple videos up on YouTube at the moment, and I would genuinely want you to go over and find them. I will put as many links as I can in the metadata for this and on the YouTube description, so you can go and find those videos, join them, make your voice heard, make your own videos, make your own podcast episodes. Social media, it may be the root of all evil. It depends who you are and what your views on it are. And who cares? Social media is something that will get Paramount's attention. It will get Netflix attention. It will get Amazon's attention. And the more people we can get moving forward saying, save Lower Decks, give it all of the chance it needs, give it all the money it needs to keep that series going. I really feel like I'm in some sort of a game at the moment now. They're all disconnected. It's all a little bit like the map editor was a bit lazy. It's like these gas here. It's just like, just stick 4 of them in a row. We're all good. Yeah, it just kind of feels like Lower Decks needs more of a chance, but it needs your voice. And we can only do that voice through the channels we have available to us. Obviously, if you work for Paramount and you're watching this and you agree with anything I've said, please, please, please go and see your bosses and say, look online, look at the love there is for Lower Decks. Let's reconsider. Let's see what we can do with this. Let's sell it to someone. Let's get them more series like they want. And I'm realising I'm not going to get anywhere near home this way. Unless actually there might be a tunnel under the motorway at this point. We'll find out in a minute. Oh, nice solar farm there. I did wonder how you get to this bit. So that's my plea, okay? Star Trek for me didn't save my life, but it makes me very, very happy. That is a great big pile of shit. And this is a complete dead end. So yeah, I gone fucked up. So I'm going to walk all the way back that way now, because I know where I fucked up, and I am going to head home. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. It's probably been way too long chatting, and I'm sorry if I bored you, but for me, Star Trek is of great importance, and losing possible Star Trek for the history books is something that I see is very, very wrong. And Lower Decks was made not just for me. It wasn't made just for you. It was made for everyone. It's the perfect introduction to Star Trek. It has humour, it has emotion, it has great storylines. It was everything, and it deserves so much more. So anyway, I'm going to let you go now. Thank you for watching. See you soon. Bye.